what you need to regulate is like what kind of a player you are. Like if you are a heavier dude, like mama's cooking's good for me, so my weight is up, so I've got a lot of mass. Okay, so I can stay in flexion for a long time, hit it with my chest, and I have a ton of mass that's going to just work through me into the ball. This one's actually kind of a fun one, I think, because we'll get a lot of bad maps that folks have kind of out of there. There's this idea right now that extension, like hip extension, is this bad thing.
Okay.
And it's actually a really good thing.
Okay.
It's just how you go about doing it that's really important.
Fair enough.
So this is going to be a spectrum of movement.
Okay.
We see on the PGA Tour, there's guys that have active pelvic rotation, which leads to active hip extension in the trail hip. Okay, so for us as right-handed player, our right hip is actively extending.
Going out that way.
Exactly, because as soon as I start to rotate the pelvis, tendency is this goes out, and it doesn't happen every time, but like the majority of the time, that's what's going to happen. Or we have this flexion pattern where in the transition, there's more or less just a drop. Now there's still going to be rotation here, but it's not an active, meaning I'm not going actively rotate the pelvis, I'm going actively drop the pelvis.
So for folks, when we're saying pelvis is the dropper, that's what we're referring to,
yes.
Right? Is that flexion pattern.
What we then are talking about is this idea of side bend compared to chest rotation.
Okay.
Okay, what we prefer to see, just because it's like for health reasons primarily, is somebody that drops in the pelvis, which in essence is going to elongate the spine. So a lot of the space between facet joints, and you could probably find a picture of what the facet joint is, TJ, and put it up for us.
Okay.
They're the little fans, like these little like fingers that stick out of the spine on my back.
Okay.
Okay, and the more that I go into active pelvic rotation, that space shrinks. I'm gonna rotate, and so I don't have as much space, which creates cellular damage, which creates inflammation, which creates pain.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of injuries come from.
Sure.
Compared to if I drop that space, if anything, it gets a little bit further away, so I have space to play with there. So then rotation and side bend is fine.
Okay.
Like golfers aren't blowing discs. You blow a disc because you have excess flexion in your spine and have too much mass on your back.
Sure.
Like if you're doing a squat this way, discs, gone, squish them, flare, blah, different problem.
Okay.
Golfers don't have that because it's not like we have tons of mass on our back when we're swinging a golf club. Okay, so preferred pattern, flexion in the pelvis or in the hips, along with rotation in the trunk or in the thoracic. We're going to have some amount of side bend, but a lot of that side bend is in the middle and upper spine, so T and C spine.
So from, pecs up.
Yep, from the bottom of the pecs up is where we're looking to have the majority of bend.
Okay.
Which again is healthy. You watch lizards move, you watch babies crawl, you watch any athletic, like if I'm throwing a baseball, I'm in heavy side bend. We are vertebrates, we're meant to bend.
Okay.
There's a healthy way to bend, there's an unhealthy way to bend.
Got it.
Okay, so our tree trunk, which is our L spine, we don't want that bending a ton.
So the lower part of the spine.
Lower part of the spine.
Okay.
There's 7 vertebrae down there, and we don't want those to bend a lot. So if you think about a tree that's standing, the only time that it really breaks is when there's enough wind to bend it down in the L, and then it breaks.
But if the upper
up here,
part, that's fine.
it's fine. It's
Okay.
skinny, it's pliable, it moves, it can
Got
do
it.
all this kind of stuff, it can move around.
It's a good visual.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's not just like that, but that's a good visual to
Okay.
have when it comes to our spine and how
Fair
we
enough.
move. Okay, let's go to the top, go to like P4 for us. And before you even do that, let's do this. We'll go about this, we'll creep up on this.
Sure.
Dissociation is another like term that a lot of like golf trainers, rotational physical trainers use. Is this idea that I can either dissociate the pelvis, which is actively rotating the pelvis, and my shoulder line isn't really moving at all. So this is dissociation of the pelvis to the rib complex.
Okay.
Or I could rotate in my thoracic region, okay, which is rotating, looks like my ribs are doing the whole job, and my pelvis isn't moving much.
Sure.
Those two ideas, they're really, really important. Okay, so let's just hold on to that. Swing it to the top again. And from there, I want you to actively rotate the pelvis. Okay, good. And if you kept going, just keep rotating the pelvis. See how far out the golf club wants to go? Mm-hmm. So now here's where injury goes. Now we're going to do this slightly so I don't hurt you. But you would tilt in the L-spine to make this the golf club go down now, because you got to get to the ground. Yeah, and you can feel pressure that just doesn't feel as good.
It's like,
And imagine
I don't
doing
like playing golf that way.
Exactly. Now it hurts more when you're static that way.
Sure.
You don't feel it as much when it's dynamic, and you get
Right.
that energy out of there. Mm-hmm. But over the course of time, what you're doing is you're just banging up individual like joints,
100%, yeah.
less space, more cellular damage, inflammation, all kinds of problems.
Okay.
Okay. Compared to, let's go up to P4 again. And in your mind, just drop the pelvis. There you go. Go back up, just drop it big time. Okay, now we can't get the golf club to the golf ball yet because we haven't turned in the chest. So now just turn the chest. Good. And obviously when you turn the chest, what we're going to have there is one of our favorite forces, which is angular force. It shoots energy out. So right now I have this loaded over here on my right side. If I turn, I'll go ahead and go first so we don't clang clubs again. So if I go turn here, and I'm passive enough, loaded, it unloads the golf club.
Club just spits out of there.
The golf club spits out on relatively a perpendicular line to your T-spine.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so let's do that one more time. So let's go up to the top. We're going to show active pelvic rotation. Good. Now what would you have to do to get to the golf club to the ground? There you go. So now we're like anti-rotation in the chest and all side bend.
Sure.
That leaks down into the L-spine. Problem?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's ineffective extension because it is active extension in the trail hip because of active rotation in the pelvis.
Okay.
Again, active being the operative word.
Okay.
We need passive extension.
Okay.
Okay, so what passive extension is? TJ, you'd be our little show guy. Just hold right here.
Sure.
Okay. So backswing, drop. Okay, this spiral line, the upper spiral that goes over, under TJ's lead armpit is over this lead scap. Mm-hmm. It goes under the armpit, diagonal across his abdomen over this right hip complex. As this starts to pull, do this in slow-mo, so this is going to respond. This starts to pull up, back and away. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling, all the way to finish. All the way to finish. There you go. That is a fully extended position right there. Mm-hmm. It's late.
Got it. And it happened because I was moving more or less the upper T-spine rather than the hips itself.
You're rotating like it. If I just stood here and just went level even, so, and I'm just rotating the chest to face you, mm-hmm. and I keep pulling, pulling, pulling.
Your pelvis eventually does something.
Yeah, so my pelvis rotated.
Yep.
Or I could go, I'm going to look at you.
Two
different ways.
Association, yeah.
So the active is what we see first. So active, chest rotation. Passive, pelvic rotation, because it got pulled on.
Which is why we say chest is the engine, right?
Chest is the engine.
Starts everything up.
And we want passive hip extension.
Okay.
We need extension.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just stay dropped.
Yeah, that doesn't
look
feel
like a
good
dork.
either. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you just go drop, turn, and this is frozen, you're like limiting how much mobility you have on the forward side. Like nobody looks like that.
Totally.
That's
yeah.
worth a darn. So those are really the spectrums. So we've got guys like our preferred pattern. We would see Hogan. We would see Trevino. We would see Hovland. We would see Mito. We'd see those guys. Other guys that play great golf, again, there's nothing wrong that it's not our preferred pattern. There's no knock on these guys. There's just health consequences. Old Jason Day, Scotty Scheffler, those guys are in this like more active extension in the trail hip, and they have to bend in their L-spine to fix it.
Got it.
Health consequences.
Okay.
That's what we're really looking at. Plus, like if we go down just a little bit, Vijay Singh, Phil Mickelson are over here on the like active extension. The rate of rotation in the club face
Goes
is
up.
just higher.
Yeah.
Okay, now they're pretty good players,
Yeah.
so you can play golf that way.
100%. Yeah.
But just know that the rate of rotation of the club face is going to go up. When you look at like Trevino, Hogan, those guys, the club face doesn't turn over. It just is like super stable in here.
Extremely square. Sure.
Yep, exactly. So there's positives and negatives from both. Now, what you need to regulate is like what kind of a player you are. Like if you are a heavier dude, like mama's cooking's good for me, so my weight is up, so I've got a lot of mass. Okay, so I can stay in flexion for a long time, hit it with my chest, and I have a ton of mass that's going to just work through me into the ball,
Sure.
right? It translates into that. Somebody that is smaller, so we see a lot of extension out of young kids. Let them extend, let them extend, let them extend. Like you need to figure out how to hit something hard, and there's no real health consequences to it because they weigh 60 pounds.
Sure.
So, and a lot of like the pressure when you put it on individual joint groups is like, it's because of all the mass that crushes that one point in space. Well, 60 pounds is like nothing, you're fine. Plus they're more pliable, blah, blah, blah. And that's why like on the LPGA Tour compared to the PGA Tour or LIV, there is a general mass difference out of each player. Women in general are less massive than men.
Sure.
So we see earlier extension out of females, typically, than we do out of males.
Okay, fair
Again,
enough.
totally fine, no problem at all. And again, that's just kind of a generalized statement, just looking at the per capita of each group. So you just need to understand how to handle extension in the hips and understand, are you actively rotating the pelvis, or is it a passive rotation?
Okay.
We still prefer a passive rotation in both. Like for men, women, juniors, everybody, a passive rotation pattern is going to be better, but you can still let that go earlier if you're lighter. If you're heavier, you probably want to stay dropped and turn on that sucker.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay, that's a good map.
So that's just a general understanding of the spectrum of extension to flexion in the hip socket region, and what pairs well with that in each one of those areas, either bend or rotation in the chest.
Got it.
There we go.
Easy.
Easy.
Okay. If you're watching all the way to the end of these videos, thank you for your support. We really appreciate it, and we're gonna keep pumping out the content on YouTube, trying to make it bigger and better over time. So we're gonna do a little giveaway when we get to 10K subscribers. We're gonna give one of you who comments on this video a free virtual lesson. So if you're interested in that, comment below. Thank you.